The year is 2025. The place? America. The problem? Trump's back, baby. And like a toddler with a mallet, he's found a new toy: tariffs. This time the auto industry is in the crosshairs. A hefty 25% tax on imported cars and parts. Trump claims it's to protect American jobs, but is it? Or is it just another reckless swing in a trade war nobody asked for? This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. This is about real people, real jobs, and a real threat to one of America's most vital industries. The warning signs were flashing red. Economists sounded the alarm. Industry leaders begged for restraint. But did President Trump listen? Of course not. He doubled down, slapped on those tariffs, and plunged the auto industry into chaos. The immediate impact: a gut punch. Production lines ground to a halt. Layoff notices went out like party invitations. The stock market went into a nosedive. The tariffs were supposed to be a magic bullet, a quick fix to boost American manufacturing. Instead, they've become a ticking time bomb, threatening to detonate the entire economy. Buckle up, America. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Let's talk about Stellantis. You know, the folks behind Jeep, Dodge, Chrysler, Ram, those all-American brands. Well, thanks to Trump's tariffs, they're singing a different tune now, a mournful ballad of factory closures and shattered dreams. Remember those 7,000 layoffs they announced? Yeah. Well, add another 900 to the pile, folks. Those are just the lucky ones temporarily out of work. Some factories have just stopped altogether. Why? Because those imported parts suddenly got a whole lot more expensive. Stellantis' earnings down the toilet. We're talking a potential 75% drop. That's $7.1 billion in losses. Their 2024 profits already took a 64% hit. This isn't just a flesh wound, folks. This is a full-blown amputation of their bottom line. The worst part: Stellantis is just the tip of the iceberg. They're the canary in the coal mine, gasping for air as Trump's tariffs suck the oxygen out of the entire auto industry. So, those shiny new Jeeps and Rams you've been eyeing? Yeah, get ready to shell out some serious dough, because Trump's tariffs are about to hit you right in the wallet. Remember that 25% tax on imported parts? Guess what? Those costs get passed right down to you, the consumer. Analysts are predicting car prices could skyrocket by $2,000 to $4,000 per vehicle. That dream of cruising down the highway in a brand new Ram 1500, well, it just turned into a $50,000 nightmare. And it's not just the cars themselves. The entire auto industry is feeling the heat. Production costs are through the roof, up by an estimated $107.7 billion. Stellantis alone is staring down the barrel of a $41.9 billion loss. These aren't just abstract numbers, folks. These are real costs that will ripple through the economy, squeezing businesses and consumers alike. The worst part: this is just the beginning. As the tariffs bite, we can expect to see even steeper price hikes, fewer choices, and a whole lot less innovation in the auto industry. Thanks, Trump. Let's step away from the charts and graphs for a minute and listen to the real victims of this trade war: the workers, the people whose livelihoods depend on a thriving auto industry. Meet Sarah, a single mum from Michigan who lost her job at a Ford plant. She's been working there for 20 years, putting in long hours to provide for her kids. Now, thanks to Trump's tariffs, she's facing foreclosure on her house. Then there's Miguel, a skilled mechanic in Texas who's seen his hours slashed at a local dealership. The reason? Fewer people can afford repairs now that car prices have skyrocketed. He's worried about putting food on the table for his family. These are just two stories out of thousands across America. Families are struggling to make ends meet as Trump's tariffs wreak havoc on the auto industry. These aren't just statistics. They're real people with real lives, and they're paying the price for Trump's reckless policies. Section 5, retaliation and ripples. The global backlash against Trump's tariffs. Think this trade war is just a domestic dispute? Think again. Trump's tariffs have sparked international outrage, and our allies are not holding back. Canada, our friendly neighbor to the north, has retaliated with targeted tariffs on key U.S. imports. Think electric vehicle parts and battery minerals. That's right, the very things America needs to compete in the global market. Prime Minister Mark Carney isn't mincing words, calling Trump's tariffs unacceptable and harmful to both economies. And don't even get us started on Mexico. They've slapped on their own counter-tariffs, further disrupting the intricate web of trade that keeps the North American auto industry humming. The message is clear. Trump's go-it-alone approach to trade has isolated America on the world stage. Instead of fostering cooperation and free trade, he's ignited a global trade war with no end in sight. Section 6. A bleak future. The long-term damage to the U.S. auto industry. So what does the future hold for the American auto industry? If Trump's tariffs remain in place, the outlook is bleak. We're talking about a potential loss of 700,000 car sales in 2025 alone. That's a lot of empty dealerships and a lot of missed opportunities for American workers. But it's not just about the numbers. Trump's tariffs are stifling innovation. With higher costs and disrupted supply chains, American automakers are struggling to compete in the global race for electric and autonomous vehicles. The very technologies that will define the future of transportation. The long-term consequences of this trade war are clear. A weaker American auto industry, fewer jobs, higher prices, and a diminished position in the global marketplace. Congratulations, Trump, you played yourself. Section 7. The American Dream derailed, how tariffs hurt workers and consumers. Remember that America First slogan Trump loves to trot out? Well, it turns out his tariffs are actually America Last. They're a lose-lose proposition for workers and consumers alike, a double whammy to the gut of the American dream. Workers are getting hammered by layoffs, reduced hours, and stagnant wages. Consumers are getting squeezed by higher prices, fewer choices, and a decline in product quality. And for what? To protect a handful of jobs in industries that are already struggling to compete. The irony is that Trump's tariffs are actually hurting the very people he claims to be helping. They're a betrayal of the American worker, a slap in the face to the middle class, and a recipe for economic stagnation. Section 8, beyond Stellantis, a wider lens on the tariff fallout. Stellantis might be the poster child for Trump's tariff disaster, but they're far from the only victim. This trade war is sending shockwaves through the entire U.S. economy, leaving a trail of collateral damage in its wake. Take Tesla, for example. They're supposed to be the darlings of the electric vehicle revolution, but even they're feeling the heat. Disrupted supply chains, thanks to those Canadian tariffs, have slowed down production, impacting their ambitious goal of producing 6 million cars in 2025. And then there's Ford. They're facing massive shipping delays, with over 25% of their production at Michigan and Kentucky plants grinding to a halt. The result, lost revenue, frustrated customers, and higher prices for everyone. The takeaway? Trump's tariffs aren't just hurting the auto industry. They're poisoning the well of the entire American economy. Section 9. A legacy of economic chaos. Trump's tariffs, a failing grade. So there you have it, folks. Trump's trade war, a masterclass in economic self-sabotage. The evidence is in and the verdict is clear. These tariffs are an unmitigated disaster. They've driven up costs, killed jobs, and crippled American businesses. They've alienated our allies, sparked global retaliation, and weakened our standing in the world. And for what? A misguided attempt to revive a bygone era of American manufacturing? The saddest part is that this was all entirely avoidable. Economists warned him, business leaders pleaded with him, even some members of his own party tried to reason with him, but Trump as always, chose to ignore the experts and follow his gut. And now the American people are left to stomach the consequences. Trump's tariffs are a stain on his legacy, a monument to his economic illiteracy, and a stark reminder of the dangers of protectionism. Let's hope that future leaders learn from his mistakes and choose a path of cooperation, free trade, and global engagement. The future of the American economy depends on it.
Remember back in the before times when the biggest concern was what questionable thing the former president was going to tweet about? Well, buckle up, because one of those tweets manifested into a real-life monster that's currently eating the U.S. economy. We're talking about Trump's auto tariffs, folks. You know, that policy that was supposed to magically bring back manufacturing jobs and make America something. Instead, it sent car prices soaring, cost thousands of jobs, and driven companies straight into the welcoming arms of Mexico. Let's be clear, this isn't about some abstract economic theory. This is about real people losing their jobs, families struggling to afford a car, and the very real possibility of another recession. So how did we get here? Well, it all started with a tweet. Just kidding. It started with a tariff. A 25% tariff, to be exact, slapped on imported cars and parts back in April 2025. The idea, at least in theory, was to make American-made cars cheaper and more appealing. Of course, anyone with even a rudimentary understanding of economics could have told you this wouldn't end well, and guess what? It didn't. The most immediate and obvious impact of these tariffs? Car prices went through the roof. We're not talking about a couple $100 here, folks. Think thousands of dollars added to the price tag of your average car, and tens of thousands for luxury models. Suddenly, that shiny new import became a pipe dream for many Americans. But here's the kicker. Even American-made cars got pricier. Why? Because those imported parts they rely on? Yep, also subject to the tariffs. It's like trying to bake a cake, but suddenly the price of flour, sugar, and eggs has tripled. You're not making a cheaper cake, you're just making a very expensive mess. The result? New car sales plummeted. Used car prices skyrocketed as desperate buyers clung to any affordable option. And the American dream of owning a car? Well, it's starting to look a lot like a rusty old jalopy held together by duct tape and hope. Remember those manufacturing jobs the tariffs were supposed to bring back? Well, turns out, they weren't hiding in Mexico, just waiting for a reason to return. Instead, the tariffs triggered a wave of job losses in the U.S. auto industry. Factories closed, workers were laid off, and entire communities dependent on auto manufacturing were thrown into economic turmoil. Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, these states, once the heartland of American car production, are now grappling with soaring unemployment and factory closures. The very workers these tariffs were supposed to help are the ones bearing the brunt of this disastrous policy. It's a classic case of shooting yourself in the foot, except in this case, the foot belongs to thousands of hardworking Americans. And the gunshot? That's the sound of another factory closing its doors for good. Now you might think our neighbors to the north would be feeling a bit smug about our self-inflicted economic wound, and while they're probably enjoying a bit of schadenfreude, Canada isn't exactly sitting idly by. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Mark Carney, Canada has adopted a two-can play at that game approach. They've implemented strategic pressure tactics like increased border checks and shipment delays, which have caused headaches for U.S. businesses. But here's the real kicker. Canada has been actively courting international investors, positioning themselves as a more stable and reliable alternative to the U.S. And guess what? Investors are listening. Section 5. A global shift. China and Europe capitalize on the crisis. Speaking of investors, let's talk about who's really benefiting from this whole mess, China and Europe. While the U.S. auto industry is busy shooting itself in the foot, these global players are more than happy to step into the void. They're pouring investments into North America, particularly in the burgeoning electric vehicle market. Chinese EV factories in Mexico are popping up like mushrooms after the rain, ready to flood the U.S. market with tariff-free cars. The irony is thick enough to cut with a knife. Trump's tariffs, intended to protect American manufacturing, have instead paved the way for foreign competitors to gain a stronger foothold in the U.S. market. It's like trying to win a boxing match by punching yourself in the face repeatedly. Section 6. Consumers in the crosshairs: rising prices and shrinking options. So we've got soaring car prices, job losses, a global shift in investment, and a looming recession. But how is all of this affecting the average American consumer? In a word, badly. New car prices have become unattainable for many, and even used car prices have skyrocketed. Interest rates on auto loans are through the roof, making it even more expensive to finance a vehicle. Consumers are caught between a rock and a hard place, forced to choose between buying overpriced vehicles or foregoing car ownership altogether. And let's be real, in a country where public transportation is about as reliable as a screen door on a submarine, that's not much of a choice. Section 7. A looming crisis: the long-term economic implications. The consequences of Trump's auto tariffs extend far beyond the auto industry. We're talking about a ripple effect that's being felt throughout the entire U.S. economy. Consumer confidence is at an all-time low. Major companies across various sectors are closing locations and laying off workers. Domino's can't deliver pizzas if people can't afford cars to get to work to make money to order the pizzas. It's a vicious cycle. Experts are warning that without government intervention, a full-scale economic depression is a very real possibility. Section 8. The blame game, Trump's role, and political fallout. So, who's to blame for this mess? Well, it's hardly a mystery. Trump's auto tariffs, enacted with a healthy dose of hubris and a complete disregard for expert advice, have backfired spectacularly. His actions are being widely criticized for contributing to the crisis and, unsurprisingly, for attempting to exploit the situation for political gain. Because of course he is. But here's the thing. Blaming Trump is easy. The real question is, what are we going to do about it? Section 9. Conclusion: a crisis of our own making. The current economic crisis is a direct result of short-sighted policies enacted with little regard for the potential consequences. Trump's auto tariffs, intended to revitalize American manufacturing, have instead crippled the industry, cost thousands of jobs, and pushed the country closer to economic disaster. This is a crisis of our own making, but it's not too late to change course. We need to acknowledge the failure of these tariffs, work to reverse the damage, and start making decisions that prioritize the long-term well-being of the country over short-term political gains. The road ahead will be long and difficult. But if we want to avoid driving the U.S. economy straight into a ditch, it's a journey we need to start now. The American auto industry is in crisis. The culprit? A 25% tariff on imported cars imposed by President Trump. This protectionist policy, intended to shield American automakers from foreign competition, has backfired spectacularly. The tariffs have ignited a chain reaction of unintended consequences, throwing the industry into turmoil and leaving American workers and consumers reeling. Instead of bolstering domestic manufacturing, the tariffs have driven up prices, crippled supply chains, and fueled uncertainty. American automakers, heavily reliant on imported parts, are struggling to maintain production levels. Dealerships are grappling with dwindling inventories, and consumers are facing sticker shock. The tariffs have also invited retaliation from key trading partners, notably Canada, further disrupting the integrated North American auto market. As the crisis deepens, the once mighty American auto industry finds itself at a crossroads, grappling with the fallout of a policy gone astray. The road ahead is fraught with uncertainty. Will the American auto industry emerge from this crisis stronger, or will it continue to decline? The answer hinges on whether policymakers recognize the tariffs' devastating consequences and chart a new course. The stakes are high, not just for the auto industry, but for the American economy as a whole. The most immediate and tangible impact of the tariffs is the dramatic surge in car prices. With a 25% levy on imported vehicles, new cars have become significantly more expensive for American consumers. The average price of a new car has skyrocketed by over 15% in a matter of weeks, pushing car ownership out of reach for many Americans. This price hike has had a ripple effect on the used car market, creating a seller's paradise. With new cars becoming prohibitively expensive, demand for used vehicles has surged, driving up prices to unprecedented levels. Used trucks are now fetching prices higher than their brand-new counterparts, a testament to the distorted market dynamics. This affordability crisis has forced many potential car buyers to delay their purchases, leading to a slump in sales. New car dealerships are reporting dwindling foot traffic and mounting inventories, a far cry from the bustling showrooms of yesteryear. The dream of owning a new car, once attainable for many Americans, is quickly becoming a distant aspiration. Contrary to the promises of protectionism, Trump's tariffs have dealt a devastating blow to American auto workers. Instead of safeguarding jobs, the tariffs have triggered a wave of layoffs and plant closures, particularly in key auto manufacturing states like Ohio, Michigan, and Kentucky. Over 50,000 auto workers have lost their jobs in the first month of Canada's retaliatory tariffs alone. These job losses are not limited to assembly line workers. They extend to engineers, designers, and support staff, impacting families and communities across the industrial heartland. The tariffs have disrupted the intricate supply chains that crisscross the continent, forcing manufacturers to grapple with higher input costs and production delays. As a result, factories are scaling back operations, furloughing workers, and even shutting down entirely, leaving behind economic hardship and shattered dreams. The tariffs have not gone unanswered. Canada, a close trading partner and a vital link in the North American auto industry, has responded strategically, inflicting pain without resorting to direct sanctions. Prime Minister Mark Carney has implemented a series of targeted measures designed to pressure the U.S. economy. These measures include increased border checks, leading to shipment delays and bureaucratic hurdles that are slowing down the flow of goods across the border. While not as dramatic as tit-for-tat tariffs, these subtle yet potent actions are taking a toll on American businesses reliant on Canadian trade. Moreover, Canada's measured response has resonated with international investors, who are increasingly viewing Canada as a stable and reliable alternative to the unpredictable U.S. market. This shift in investment, while gradual, poses a long-term threat to the dominance of the American auto industry. As the automotive industry continues to evolve, global automakers are increasingly looking beyond U.S. borders for growth opportunities. With emerging markets showing significant potential, companies are expanding their operations and investing in new regions. This shift is driven by a combination of factors including market saturation in developed countries, the rise of a middle class in developing nations, and advancements in technology that make global expansion more feasible. Automakers are not only seeking new customers but also new supply chains and production facilities to enhance their competitiveness. This global perspective is reshaping the industry and setting the stage for the next era of automotive innovation. Small suppliers, often the backbone of the auto industry, are feeling the brunt of this economic turmoil. Many of these businesses operate on thin margins and simply cannot absorb the increased costs. As a result, they face difficult decisions, layoffs, reduced hours, or even shutting down operations entirely. The ripple effect is devastating, impacting not just the companies but the families and communities that depend on them. The impact of the automotive industry's struggles extends far beyond the factory floor. When auto manufacturers and suppliers struggle, it sends shockwaves through the broader economy. Job losses in the auto sector lead to reduced consumer spending, which in turn affects retail, housing, and various service industries. The interconnected nature of the economy means that a downturn in one sector can quickly lead to a broader economic slowdown. The policies implemented by the Trump administration, intended to bolster the American auto industry, have instead often exacerbated the crisis. Tariffs on imported steel and aluminum raised production costs for automakers. Trade wars with key partners disrupted supply chains and created uncertainty. These measures, rather than providing relief, have added layers of complexity and challenge for an already struggling industry. Looking forward, the road to recovery for the American auto industry is fraught with uncertainty. While there is hope that new technologies and innovations could provide a lifeline, the industry faces significant hurdles. Global competition, shifting consumer preferences, and the ongoing effects of past policies all contribute to an unpredictable future. The resilience and adaptability of the industry will be tested as it navigates these challenges.